Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joining this stream. Welcome to another DDD meetup, virtual DDD meetup. Today it's only me, and today we're joined by João and Krisztina. So first, some announcement. Some people probably made an RSVP question. We didn't see that, unfortunately, on the meetup page. So when you have questions, just chat and we'll answer them straight away. So, Krisztina, would you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Krisztina. I'm developer for I don't know how long, a very long time, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Goiko Edgic and impact mapping in special. And I'm sure that's a very, very good technique.
Cool, thank you. And João, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I can, Kenny. Hello, everyone. My name is João. I'm a consultant helping teams accelerate their strategics regarding software delivery. I'm also a big fan of visualization techniques. I try some during my career, but later I'm meddling around with impact mapping and the benefits that can have in our workflow. And that's why I'm here to share my experience.
Yeah, awesome. So today will be about impact mapping. And last time we didn't do any visualization, which actually goes against all that is DDD, I guess. So today we're trying out some more visualization, and we're going to start a bit about what is impact mapping. So let me see if this goes correctly. So now everyone should be able to see my screen. Do you see it?
Yep.
Cool. So, Krisztina, can you start with the why and the who of impact mapping? What is impact mapping exactly?
Exactly. I would start with impact mapping because it's just like you said, it's visualization. Impact mapping actually is a technique to strategic planning. How should I deliver the right feature? How should I deliver business goals and not some features who somebody told me to do? I always think about this crazy video about some company is purchasing some services and they want blue lines and then red lines and then blue lines which are transparent, and this is the best description how you can request some bullshit which doesn't help. And this is what impact mapping is aiming at, to deliver business goals and not some features. Yeah. Because the features could be perfectly delivered, but if they don't help, then they are failed, and your time is wasted and your company money is wasted.
Cool. So how would we start such an impact map?
Exactly. The first impact mapping has 4 questions, which is going along, and with the help of these questions, you come at the final to a story map, or to stories, or some actions. The first question is why. Why? What is the goal? Why are we doing what we are doing? Why are we here? And what we try to, why are we doing what we are doing?
Yeah.
What is what we try to achieve? And this is actually the most important part, because if the answer is not the best one, then you can build some big, huge castles which are not helping. This is why everybody should think good about this goal. This is the most important part.
Yeah.
If goals are the first goal or the most important goal is defined, the next question is who. Who is whose behavior we want to impact. This is a slightly different question as in every other technique I learned about or I heard about, because it's not the question who I am impacting, but whose behavior we want to impact. Who can produce the desired effect? Who can help us? Maybe you can write another one.
Yeah, so who can help us?
Yeah, and then you can write in the next actor post it. Who can help us or who can hinder us in reaching our goals?
Yeah, so like this, who is his or her is it? So who can help us and who can hinder us?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's great. So João, how would you, when we have the why and the who, so now it goes on to the impact, right? So how would you find these?
Yeah, that's correct. It's what it call the second level in the impact mapping that we are drawing. And impacts is the actions that the actors can have, and are the things that are closely related to our goal, to our why. When we are mapping out, we should focus on the main actions that these actors can do. We shouldn't list everything. And also we remember, as Krisztina says, this should be really focused on the business goal, on the why, and we shouldn't think about software. So my backbone is a software developer, so I tend to fall in the trap of thinking code. This is not what this is about. This is how can this actor help us achieve this goal.
Yeah. And then you move into the what, right?
Exactly. The what, we go to a micro level. So the what is the description of the how. So if we have an action that an actor can do to achieve the goal, the what is the ways that actor can do it. And these
the ways that the actor can do it.
And can be more than one way. And also a great thing about this is that we can list several hows and several whats, and doesn't mean that we need to explore all the lines.
So how would you do it? So I'm as you know, I use a lot of EventStorming where we first go into storming mode. So how would you do it from the start? Would you create several goals first or storm some goals, or do you already go into an impact mapping with a certain goal?
In my experience, and just to frame and give the context, I use it lately in a digital transformation and DevOps transformation. And I help a group of people, leadership team, to think about the different topics that we need to work on. So we already have an idea of the why.
Are you still there?
I am. Can you listen to me?
You went away.
Okay, sorry. So the way that we apply these was based on design thinking. That first was diverge and working in small pairs. In a later stage, converging. This technique worked very well with this group. And I also recommend observe the group to see the type of personalities that we have. And there are several group facilitators techniques that can help. From that, when the group start converging, we start to see the hows affecting the who's, the actors, and have a clear picture of the different paths that can be explored.
And I know, Krisztina, you did one today.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the same way how you would do it?
I wanted to do it the same way, but in the last, do you hear me?
Yeah.
But in the last few days, I thought about challenging the goal, and it was the right way because we had some assumptions about our goal, but I think it would be the wrong one. And we had some very surprising goals today. We discovered after a few hours a few surprising goals and surprising information what we didn't know. It is just what it stays, what is in the book, saying some senior people, some C-level, some stakeholders has some ideas in their head and nobody knows about this. This is the first biggest, for me, is a very big impact to put everything, to make everything transparent and align everybody, have the same idea about the goal.
Yeah.
And my last sentence today was after the whole session, I was discussing with the CEO, and he was very pleased and said it was really cool and informative and surprising sometimes. And he didn't know that we are not aligned at our goals. And I told him, what is a goal without alignment? It's only a sentence on a paper. It's not a goal. For me, the goal is defined by alignment. And he was speechless. It was really cool because he never thought about this. Everybody who is in some level thinking, okay, we have some goals written somewhere in a PowerPoint or somewhere, and then it's for everybody, it's clear. And it is not. And if we are not, we are a small startup, and if we are not working for the same goal, we lose everything.
I can imagine that it's sometimes hard to describe this how. Did you have any experience with that, João or Krisztina?
I have. This how is the interesting part, because we need to do some assumptions, right? If everyone has a certainty about the process and how to reach the why, we don't need visualizations, we don't need discussions. So I also urge people to draw scenarios, and that's why the how is so important. We do some assumptions, we need to do. This is how the business grow and innovation pops up, and also all the best ideas came. So we can do at this phase, we can imagine some scenarios where some actors can behave in a certain way, or we can influence the behavior of the actors, and it's the right place to put there. And that's why sometimes works best if the group is too large to split the group, or
so what would you consider a large group?
So to do this with a group, in my experience, with more than 6 people, start to be very, very chaotic. So the way that I managed that was splitting the group in pairs and really scope. So people have the space to have discussions, but we don't engage in a big discussion. Also, very particular point here, because it's a group of managers. They have strong personalities and strong opinions, and it helped to manage the group on that way. I'm not saying that is silver bullet, but it's one of the heuristics that I use to look to the personalities and behaviors in the group. To help that.
Did you do the same, Krisztina? How many people did you start with?
No, we started with 10 people, I think, but we didn't reach the level of the second level. We took time to discuss our goals and have this alignment, and the goal is to 4 smaller parts with the milestone, with the date, and the actors. We discussed the actors too, and the next point would be next step would be to discuss the metrics, because this is one of the hardest parts to find and to accept that the goal has to be measurable.
I've done it once or twice, and the metrics are should be in the goal, right? Or
this is essential part, because I had a huge discussion, and now I have some colleagues which are not agree, but if something is not measurable, okay, I could have it a goal, but I have no idea if I'm doing good or not. I cannot compare it.
And you talked about alignment, and João said we split up. So how do you split the teams up? João, did you have one goal, or did you have several goals, or how did you split these teams up? Because I hear Krisztina say, we want alignment, and having everyone together on one board creates more of an alignment. How do you deal with that?
After that, we would have split up. Sorry, it would be the next step. It will be the next step that we split up by goals.
By goals, okay.
Because we have teams and the goals are fitting to these teams.
Yeah, so you had several goals then?
Yeah.
Okay. And was that the same for you, João?
Yes, we have several goals. So a little bit more on the context, it's DevOps transition affecting a group of almost 200 people. And there are certain goals that we want to achieve. For instance, we want to break silos, bring together development on operations. What is the impact? How these will affect the customers? How these will affect the product? All of these variables. There are several goals. Luckily, with our case, everyone agree with the goals. People weren't agree with strategy, and that is the normal part. What we did here, because some people have more knowledge about some actors than others, we have the same goal, and the workshop was more towards the actors, the people that the managers knew and know, because they have more influence and more context, and that helps out to do all the puzzle. Although when we go to the house, as I said, there are some assumptions that sometimes needs to be made, but because they have that knowledge, they mitigate the risk on that way.
Okay.
That was more productive, because rather than I don't know your context, Kenny, and I start doing the house for you, that have more risks because I'm not fully aware of your context, we were able to manage on this way. And it's working out.
Yeah. So how would you split the teams up there? Would it be based on their personal liking to the goal, or do they do that themselves?
In my case, in this particular case, the group divided by themselves. Yeah. What I saw was two things. First, how they can influence this goal and the information and data about the context. Second one also was how they like or dislike the goal. But I didn't push the team to form certain groups. The team, when they split up by themselves. So it's one advantage of having managers and people with strong opinion.
Yeah, and about strong personalities, we got a question from Orpheus asking, can you expand on how strong personalities affect your approach to creating a story?
Yeah, I can talk about that. In this case, I saw strong personalities clashing about the operational details, the how and sometimes the what. And they forget why are we doing this? What are the benefits? With this visualization, and because I saw some workshops without visualizations when these clashes occurs, I was able to manage the group and focus on the goal or focus on the goals. I use and combine with an adjacent technique that I call a parking lot. So if another goals or another ideas popping up, we park them to discuss on a later stage. But that is a combination and a strategy that I use.
Yeah. So back to those metrics, right? And I hope Orpheus, your question is now answered. If not, let us know. So back to those metrics and time, especially time, Krisztina, you said you did impact mapping today and you only come to the second stage after you told me 3 hours, right?
Well, more than 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that.
2.5 hours, yeah. So how would you do it? I have the same problem with EventStorming, right? You need to time box something, because you only have some people, and you're in a smaller company, but in every company you have like a certain time frame where you can have these people. So how did you make the people leave and still give them a satisfaction even though they aren't finished?
Most of them were satisfied because of this surprising goals and surprising understanding. It was, I think, for everybody, it was very important to have the same understanding.
Yeah.
Because other way we would plan something and create something and hire people for something what we maybe don't even need.
Yeah.
We need this understanding to make the right decisions. And I had two junior colleagues who had a plan for themselves, and they were not satisfied because we didn't get to the what, to the stories.
Yeah.
But I am sure that if we continue this on the next step and we get our actors and do exactly what João said, based on the actors, we create some scenarios, then they will see that we need this first two parts because you cannot start in the middle. And it is a huge risk to start with the wrong goal, and after that, 6 months later or 3 months later, you see it isn't even our problem. We solved the wrong problem.
Yeah.
We need the same problem, and we need these constraints to have measurable goals.
Yeah.
Don't think we can skip this.
Yeah. And back to or furthermore on the metrics you're talking about, that would you, because the goal gives you you say like 15% more revenue. Let's take a really ridiculous,
this is an easy goal,
easy goal, right?
Yeah.
But once you go to the actors and to the deliverables, I think was the next one, the impact, right?
Yeah.
So where would you divide, and how would you divide these metrics? Do you divide them under the actors or on the impacts or on the stories? Because I guess if you want to have 15% more revenue, you can have a sort of like hunch what each impact would give you or what each actor will give you. How would you go to the next stage?
I wouldn't divide the metrics. I would define them by the goal. Like, okay, I have the metrics has 5 properties. What we are measuring, like revenue, how we are measuring it in absolute or percentage rates or absolute numbers. What's the benchmark? What's my current line? This is very important. A lot of people forget this. And what's my minimum? It's more properties. What's my minimum, what I want to achieve, and what's the target? And why I could have 5 different actions to do this, to make some marketing actions or to build some new features or get people from the street to buy it, buy my product. And all of this is working for this one metric.
Yeah.
I just need to refresh and measure and learn and take other actions or stop doing what I did if it makes wrong. It makes not better, but it's wrong. It changed my revenue in a negative way.
Yeah. You had that same experience, João? Like only do it on the goal, the impact, or the metrics, I mean?
Yes. In this case, at the goal, the why, and the metrics are a little bit more simple because we are not talking about a product or a new line of business that we are exploring. I'm using this on a change management context, but yeah, we apply it at goal level.
Okay, cool. Talking about these metrics, I can imagine when you start defining the goal, it can be hard if people don't know their current metrics. Do you come by this a lot? Is this a problem for you, João?
Yeah, I face this problem as a consultant when I visit customers and we talk about metrics and how we are going, because the silos that exist inside of the companies, the organizations, and information is not flowing. If we talk with techies, they talk about number of servers and talking about CPU usage. If we talk with the financial department, they talk about revenue. But sometimes we forget what the company does, why the company exists.
Yeah.
And
so would you, before you do an impact mapping, and I want to see your view too, Krisztina, before you did your impact mapping, do you try to already ask them for these metrics from the start or not?
No, because meeting should have been next week. It was yesterday was decided that we'll keep it today.
Okay, and how did you
But as we discussed the goals, I told them they should try to think about goals, what we can measure.
Mhm.
They don't need to write some numbers there, but it should be measurable, because if it's not, then we cannot measure any improvement.
Yeah. So is that the same for you, João? Did you ask the metrics up front, or?
Yes, we knew the metrics because one of the things, for instance, is merging the development and the operational ops department. So we know the number of people. We know the average of incidents, outages per quarter. We know already this because this company have the ETL processes in place, so those numbers exist. So we start with these numbers. So we are, during this process and how this impact the actors, we also have these quality levels. We don't want to pass these thresholds, because if we have more outages and affect the customers, we don't generate revenue. So those metrics are in place and a little bit easier to grab. Again, is not a product context.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. So got a question from Arjen van der Star asking, regarding the metric, is this being used together with a lean IT framework mindset?
I don't know. I really not understanding it.
Okay. You have any question on that?
I don't know the lean frameworks in detail, but where I use the metrics, and as Krisztina also explained, I use this technique that are landing zones, right? We have our current value, we have the minimum to go, and we have the target. I was introduced to this technique from Rebecca in one of their workshops, and I use these. I imagine that is correlated, but to be honest, I will like to know these lean frameworks.
Yeah. Okay, coll. So
what I was think about this as I reread the book, this is something like OKRs, which is in everybody's mind today, in these days. The OKRs are newer as the book, but it's somehow the same, has the same feeling. Our goals today were the same what we have as our OKRs. And this is good, because it would be very bad if it would be something different. We have the same goal. We have the same goal like our objective key results. And in that case, you also need some metrics. And what I experienced that we had defined our objective key results, but we didn't come back and measure them and decided to stop doing something if we achieved some metric. This is very important to say, okay, I do not invest anymore because I achieved this.
Yeah.
And this is why you need the metric. It doesn't matter what you do, but you need to measure, to not invest forever because it's cool to do. Then it becomes some pet feature and not a goal anymore.
Yeah. So, and that's maybe a question that Orpheus also asked, is how do you verify and validate the metrics for the goal?
The metrics, I verify my
He's asking experiments. So he says, how do you verify and validate the story? Experiments. And then he says, I mean the metrics for the goal. That was his question.
Yes, at the start, this is I think in João's situation is somehow other, because he is a transformation. In our case, it's a pure lean product development. We have no idea if our ideas are right or not. Is assumption poor. This is why it has to be very good metrics to not invest in the wrong features.
Mm-hmm.
And these metrics can be defined, and we can set up a pace, a milestone, and say, okay, now we are checking again and verifying these numbers. It has to be something very, very clear and not a feeling. This is why it's so hard to define this metric.
Yeah.
And to define the goal. We had
Yep.
some similar tries to have some metrics like increase, not revenue, but conversion rate or something. And in our case, in our product, it's very depending from the weather what we have. So that our metric is it's not good because our conversion rate depends how the weather is. So we can do the biggest features or biggest stuff, but if the weather is bad, our conversion rate would not raise.
Yeah.
It doesn't confirm anything. It doesn't say if our actions on our impact is right or not. We need another metrics. And this is what also stays in the book, that it's written in the book that if your metric can be achieved, it's somehow a validation that your metric and your goal is the right one. You have to be sure that your metric tells you if you are right or not.
Yeah.
It means dependencies has to be eliminated, like in developer speak.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to domain-driven design. So impact mapping is not or did not came from the DDD scene. Well, I think Goiko was one of the Eric Evans' main trainers back then. So how would you see people use impact mapping in their DDD approach? So how does it relate to other techniques or to modeling or towards a bounded context? How would you see that?
So picking up your first part, how this combines with other techniques, I use these one with EventStorming, and I use with this group, because impact mapping in our case don't have a timeline perspective. Although we can set up milestones in 3 months, I will like to achieve these metrics. But I combine with EventStorming after we do all the goals, we start to plot in a timeline to start to see, okay, we are doing these assumptions. These assumptions have some problems, or we are finding some hotspots, as we say in EventStorming.
So would you use the stories in the timeline, or are you going to event storm the stories?
We start putting the stories in timeline to start seeing the conflicts that we have, because after doing so many goals, so many whys, people tend to think that is done. So to avoid that trap, I was challenging them, okay, if we plot these in half a year or 1 year, when do we want to achieve our whys? Because we cannot do everything at the same time. And that aids to have EventStorming, because EventStorming adds the time dimension, and we could see if there are conflicting views, or even if there are dependencies between different goals.
Yeah. So you take these stories here. You take the stories here and you move them into an EventStorming timeline like this.
Exactly, because again, in our case, is a change management, is merging its people, and we need to be very careful with people, because people have feelings. My code doesn't have feelings, doesn't mind to be erased. And at the same time, although it's a change management context, those teams and the people that are affected, they produce code and they produce products. We need to accelerate their business. So I combine these two ones to give more visibility and more awareness that we can speed up, or we can need to slow down, or there are some questions that are not answers and we need to deep dive.
Yeah. So another thing here, it helps you visualize and see the big picture, right? So would you say that impact mapping, so I use big picture event storming a lot. So would you use it with big picture event storming, or I can see it work after or before? How would you see that?
In my case, we did impact mapping first and big picture after. I will imagine other cases that will be the other way around, that we do first event storming, and event storming tell us that we don't have our goals defined or there are too many confusion. So it's a good way also to step back and go to the goals. So I will say that is interchangeable, and we should watch for the signs.
Yeah. And from event storming, the big picture, right? And from other techniques, we can get these strategic design patterns out of it, or emergent bounded context. And I hear you speak earlier about already splitting up goals to several people. Would you say that that could be a heuristic to also, like Nick Tunes called it, follow the domain expert, right? The domain experts are splitting towards goals. Is there already some emergent bounded context happening there, you think?
In our case, yes. We start notice some dependencies that people weren't aware. So the bounded context, even the way that people operate, they weren't as expected or as by the books, because, well, if the system doesn't work towards people, people find ways to go around the system. But this was a nice discovery. And also had another interesting point. So I've been doing this in the last 2 months. And yesterday, a senior developer with an architect profile came to me. Okay, I see that you are doing this with the managers and sharing all this information with us. But now I also see conflicts in our own architecture and the way that we align our teams with software that we are developing. And this is perfect, because now we figure out that the teams are not perfectly aligned with these business goals. We need to think and address that. So these techniques also accelerate discovering the problems and force people to think about their own context and their own problems. And these help from a strategic point of view, as we speak on our DDD lingo, to get the right bounded context and to get the right alignment of people's software.
Yeah, I can imagine if you have several user stories moving towards several teams that you might have an issue there, right?
Yes.
Are there any more smells within the impact mapping where you can see that your current architecture isn't that loosely coupled as you want it to be, or that boundaries are incorrect? What other smells could we find?
I find interesting ones that is battles about who owns what. So we go to the house and people discuss, oh, this house doesn't belong to this actor. And that also show the ownership of those components or tasks or impact are not clear defined. And that also go back, do we have the right domains and subdomains? Do we right bounded contexts? Are we really aligning people, or as Krisztina referred, do we have pet features and pet products that we don't need?
Yeah. Is that for you the same, Krisztina? Could you see, do you have any smells you already saw that the business or that your software isn't highly aligned to the business goals?
I would go a step back and saying that impact mapping helps discovering and defining this ubiquitous language, because the whole time you are talking about goals, about actors, about names, personas, and you define your language. And if you are talking all the time about financial services and you don't have a team financial services, but a team, I don't know, processing, then it is a smell, because you obviously have a team working for different services, or another way around, or different teams are writing in the same database. Really, very blunt now, but this is obviously a smell. But already in discussing the goals, if two teams have the same goal, then they should work together. And why are they two teams?
Yeah, and also within a big picture event storming, where things happen between boundaries, there can be a simple word can be really ambiguous, right? some meaning in different contexts can mean something different in another context, right?
Exactly.
That's really on the edges of the bounded context, usually under the big picture event zone. Is that smells you can easily see here too? Between the impacts, perhaps, or where would you visualize it?
You surely can, because you are talking about actors and about how, and if different people understand different things in the same word, then it's obvious that for them, customer is a different customer as for me. It can be discovered and can be noted somewhere, and it can lead to a border or to a bounded context, and saying, okay, from here on, is this your task or your part, and this is my part.
Yeah, so that's our great heuristics already to have some clues toward emergent bound context.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. So Arjan rephrased his question. He says, how does impact mapping fit in with existing process frameworks in an organization, or can they just coexist, and is impacting more of an extra tool and not really part of a method?
For me, this is the decision part, or not the design part, but the discovery part of what should we build, what should we do to fulfill a problem and not deliver some line of code.
Yeah. So
for me, it's the first part of stories or refinement.
Yeah, so it's actually when you do something new or have a new goal, you'll start doing this first.
Yeah. Or you have a problem. I'm really curious, João, how you started with the whole transformation. Obviously, the company must have a problem which can be measured, and they say, no, we have to change this.
Yeah, in our case, the company have those goals in mind, and those goals state at senior level, which make the drill down easier. I will say, to answer to the question, for me, impact mapping is a tool on my toolbox that I use from a strategic point of view. When there is lots of uncertainties and we need to do assumptions, well, let's try to do the right assumptions. And I don't see impact mapping replacing other processes. I believe that things can coexist and should coexist because, as Kenny said multiple times in different occasions, every tool has their blind spots. So impact mapping, as Krisztina described today, found one blind spot in the company that was, do we have the right goals? And this is very powerful. Other processes can live there, but I imagine that in this technique with EventStorming, the architects start thinking about if teams and software are perfectly aligned.
Yeah, the way I see it is...
And this was without putting code.
The way I see it, and we talked about this, it's just another item in your toolkit, and as facilitator or as, mainly facilitator, you just use whatever tool fits the purpose at the moment. And I believe this is really important to talk about goals. I think that's where you actually start. Or actually somewhere in the beginning, you need to start, okay, why are we doing it? Tell me. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Everybody has everybody has some plans. And if you don't talk about this and you don't visualize this, then it is not a goal, but it's a plan from somebody, and it has to become a common goal, because other way around, it won't be achieved. It's not a team. For me, this is also a team building technique, because you align on the same goal. You understand the other, your partner, your colleague. You understand what he's thinking and what he's doing, and he understands you.
Yeah, definitely agree. I was once at a CTO meeting, and they say, how can we create more accountability? And then I told them, well, first create ownership. Tell them why are we doing this? And then people can start taking ownership, and then accountability will probably come.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So we have one more question from Daniel, and he says, The way I see it, the goal scope and impact mapping tends to be set in the business level. Have you used it in a more lower level, like technical?
For me, we were everybody there today, from everybody, CEO, marketing, sales, development, everybody.
Yeah. So that's the same with visual collaboration, like other tools like EventStorming, domain storytelling, use story mapping. You put everything in the room, right?
Because you need these different ideas and thinking out of the box.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We have no further questions. I think this was a really nice discussion. I hope everything is more clear about impact mapping. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your insights. A note to all the people here: if you want to join us for this and discuss a topic or discuss a talk, go to virtualddd.com and you can email us, and we'll invite you for a session yourself if you want to. The next session will be in 2 weeks, where I will be at the SPAR conference talking with Trond about business capabilities. So this was it for today. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.